أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. Respected elders, brothers, sisters in Islam and Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a blessing of Allah to gather as mourners and those who remember the tragedies of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. The which is the days which are known as Ayyam-e-Fatimiyyah, the days of Sayyida Fatima alayhi as-salam are upon us. And before I begin the topic for tonight, I wanted to first give a motivation for why it's important for us to commemorate these gatherings, to remember Sayyida Fatima, and to inshallah benefit from this experience. We have a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, who is explaining in this hadith why is it that he named his daughter Fatima. And he says that inni sammaytuha Fatima, I named her Fatima لأن الله عز وجل فطمها وفطم من أحبها من النار. I've named her Fatima because Allah has separated and pulled away Fatima, pulled away her and those who love her from the fire. So fundamentally, if we want to be people who are separated from the fire, then we need to find a way to Fatima alayhi salam. We need to take the path of Fatima alayhi salam. Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is somebody for whom we know has a great status in the hereafter. We know that she is one who will be the first to enter the paradise. We know that she is one who will be given the prerogative to choose those who will come with her as well too. But not only is she somebody who is extremely important in the hereafter, but even as we are living our lives right here and now, knowing who she is and having her be part of our lives and learning about her is something which can be incredibly useful for us. One time there was a man who was in need. He had a haja. He travels to the shrine of Imam Rida alayhi salam and he watches. He wishes to present his need to Imam Rida. Along the way, as he's making his way towards the shrine, he happens to meet Allama Tabatabai, the great scholar, rahmatullahi alayh, in the courtyard before entering the actual haram. So he tells him that, this is my situation, I have a great need. Do you have any advice for me? Allama tells him that you're going in front of Imam Rida alayhi salam, but my advice to you is that when you go to him, ask him by the sake of his grandmother, Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. For there is no way that your haja will be refused if you ask him in that way. Experience has shown, there was a young man who was relating that whenever it came time in his life where the temptations of the dunya were strong, he found himself slipping in his iman. His lifesaver, that which brought him back, that which eventually put him on the right path, was when he would remember Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. He would pick up a book or listen to something or hear or just reflect and think about who this person was and what she stood for, and that would be the thing that would bring him back. So this is an opportunity for us, and I want to recall the words of one of the contemporary Maraja, Ayatollah Khamenei, Hafidhahullah, where when speaking about the commemoration of the Ayyam-e-Fatimiyyah over the years, he notes that over the years, especially recently, the commemoration of this gathering has increased in the number of people being involved, the size of the gatherings, the importance given to it. And he says that this is not something which is coincidental. As, he says, as the light of Islam spreads throughout the earth, so the awareness of the spiritual status of Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam begins to grow as well too. And this is what we see. That when we come to these type of gatherings, we have an opportunity to discover this hidden treasure. To know more about who this incredible personality was. Now, one of the ways that we can come to know her, which inshallah we'll be doing, is we can look at those titles that she was given by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam themselves. We find in a number of riwayat that the Ahlul Bayt would refer to her with her alqab. For example, we find in a hadith that is narrated from our sixth Imam alayhi salam, he says that لِفَاطِمَةَ عَلَيْهَا السَّلَامِ تِسْعَةُ أَسْمَاءٍ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Fatima has 9 names with Allah. What are those 9 names? Fatima was-Siddiqa wal-Mubaraka wal-Tahira wal-Zakiyya wal-Radiya wal-Mardiya wal-Muhaddatha wal-Zahra. Now each one of these names can be a means of getting to know more about this personality and also a means for us to educate ourselves. So inshallah what I'll be doing is each of the 3 nights, if Allah gives the tawfiq, I wish to take one of the names and to discuss it in relation to Sayyida Fatima. But before doing so, I just want to have a disclaimer. One time one of my teachers was giving an example of comparing our ability to understand the deeper secrets of the universe versus the ability of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. He said that imagine you had a man who grew up in a basement, never went outside of the home, always in the dark of the basement. The only light that he would experience would be from a small window from which sometimes the sunlight would enter in. He said that, what would that man know about the sun? All he sees is that tiny trickle of light streaming through that window. But where is that and where is the sun? Such is the ability that we have to be able to understand these personalities. So when I, inshallah, try to explain a bit about it, let's keep this disclaimer in mind, that this is according to our level, not according to their level. The name that inshallah we wish to cover tonight is the name Ar-Radiyah. Ar-Radiyah is the one who is content, the one who is happy. Why is it that Sayyida Fatima was named as Ar-Radiyah? Why is it that she has this title with the Ahlul Bayt and also with Allah? One of the incidents we see in history that shows her state of contentment with Allah and with His decree happens soon after her marriage. According to books of hadith, Sayyida Fatima alayhi salam, after the wedding ceremony, sometime afterwards, she is with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and she enters in one time. She enters into his home and she's a bit distraught, a bit upset. Rasulullah asks her, what is it that's wrong, oh my daughter? Is there something wrong with do you have something, is it with Imam Ali alayhi salam? What is the issue? She says that no, nothing. The only issue, the only problem I'm facing is that there are people who are talking. Because there were people who were jealous, right? After all, she had married none other than the champion of Badr, the champion of Uhud, the champion of this and that. He was the champion of Islam. They were jealous of him. They were jealous of her. They wanted a way to taunt her and bring her down. So she says to her father that they are making fun of me. Sometimes they would do so by looking at the wealth of Imam Ali and comparing him and saying that you could have done better. You could have married somebody who has much more wealth. She actually explains this to her father. And Rasulullah, in order to console her, begins to explain to her that this marriage was not something that was ordinary. This marriage was made in heaven. It was the decree of Allah. That's why you married Imam Ali alayhi salam. He was your kufu and you were his kuf. You were the ones who were equal with each other. She's very happy when she hears this from Rasulullah. And then he goes on to explain further the merits of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he tells her that I want to tell you, O my daughter, that Jibreel alayhi salam has come and he has a message from As-Salam. As-Salam meaning Allah. And Allah has a message for me which is to convey As-Salam from As-Salam, meaning to convey salam from Allah to Ali alayhi salam. As a means of indicating the merit of Imam Ali alayhi salam. When Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam hears this, she is so overcome that she stands up and she says the following. She says, Raditu billahi rabba. I am happy and content with Allah as my Rabb, as my Lord. And I am content with you, O my father, as the Nabi. And I am content with Ali as the Imam. This is the rida of Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. She was somebody who was content with her Lord. Content with Rasul, contented with the wali as well too. Now if we want to understand more about this concept of rida, the ulama have explained this and described the different stages of contentment and happiness. I want to refer to the words of Imam Khomeini rahmatullahi alayhi from his sharh of the hadith of Junud al-Aql wal-Jahl. This is a very important book. The ulama recommend this as one of the very good sources for information about ilm al-akhlaq, the science of ethics. In this he has an entire chapter about rida. What does it mean for somebody to have contentment with Allah, with Rasul, with the wali? He says first of all that there are multiple levels of rida. And we just want to cover two of them for tonight, inshallah, and then that will be enough. The first one, he says, is to have rida with the laws of Allah. And this is very interesting. That as people who, as the creations of Allah, we are naturally the servants of Allah, and Allah has the right of lordship over us. This is known as the Haqqur Rububiyyah. Allah is the Rabb. And the lordship of Allah is divided into two categories. One of them is called Takwini, the other one is called Tashri'i. Takwini is Allah being a Lord in the natural order of this universe. He is the one who is in charge of all the affairs. He's the one who is running the agenda. He's managing the course of different events that takes place. He's the one who gives life, He's the one who gives death, He's the one who provides rizq, so on and so forth. Part of His being the Lord, however, is that He has the ultimate right to decree what we should do and we shouldn't do. So Imam Khomeini rahmatullahi alayhi says that one of the stages of rida and contentment is for somebody to have the contentment with the decree and the law of Allah. The halal and the haram. He says that for somebody to even accept it, but to have that negative feeling in their hearts, this would be something that would be contrary to rida. We as the abd of Allah have to work at arriving at that point where not only do we follow the law of Allah, but we accept it as well too. Now, this is something which has a practical element to it. I'll give you an example. Oftentimes, you find that when people go on trips, They're very keen on knowing, okay, is our salah going to be qasr or is it going to be full? It becomes sometimes it's a big debate. Is it full or is it going to be... And God forbid, if the answer is that it's going to be full, then you'll find that people's faces become so disappointed, and it's something that, oh, we missed out on this, right? And if it's, on the other hand, if it's happiness, okay, this is the real trip now. We have to ask a simple example, but why is it that we find it so difficult? Is this what, as in the capacity of being an abd of Allah, with regards to the hukm of Allah, this is the law that He has decreed, what should be our response? Now recently, I want to give another contemporary example. That was just to kind of warm up things. Recently, the Muslim community as a whole in North America, including the Shias as well too, just some months back, there was a test in this regard. And it had to do with the passing of the bill in the United States legalizing the same-sex marriage. This was a test. Because after this happened, I was very surprised and shocked to see the responses of Muslims who consider themselves to be devout when it came to this. Especially among the young people. We found people, on social media even going to the point of changing their profile in a way to indicate support for this law. To say that we're okay with this type of law and this type of arrangement and this type of lifestyle. We found people militantly defending this law. Muslims. Anybody who stands up against it, bigot. You're racist. You're closed-minded. You're narrow-minded. We found people campaigning, Muslims, very prominent North American Muslim figures, saying that if you as Muslims want to survive as a minority, you want to be given your rights, then the only way you're going to be able to do so is by supporting other minorities. Otherwise, don't expect that you're going to get anything either. And we have to ask ourselves that this, with respect to somebody who has rida with the decree of Allah, where are the two? How is it that we should respond? As Muslims, it's very clear. It's something which is nas in the Qur'an, something which is established in the Qur'an. That this type of lifestyle is not a correct type of lifestyle. There is only one type of marriage which is the right type of... This is the intention of Allah in His creation, is for there to be a marriage between a man and a woman. And that's it. We as Muslims believe in traditional families. And we believe that in our society, to have a healthy society, to have a society where you don't have what's going on right now, with divorces and with unhappiness and with marital tensions and with so many problems, the only way of restoring order in the society is by having healthy traditional families. This is our belief. Now, who is it that's closed-minded? Right? If you tell me that I don't have a right to have this belief, that I don't have a right to understand what's right and wrong, then am I closed-minded or you're closed-minded? Who has the right to believe this? See, we need to understand, one of the things that helps us, I think, to understand this is if we look at the teachings of the ulama of usul al-fiqh. We have different sciences in Islamic sciences. One of them is the science of fiqh, the science of deriving the laws from the sources. We have another science which is usul al-fiqh, deriving the principles upon which the laws are derived. Now there, the ulama, when they talk about a law, like a law in Islam, like salah 5 times a day is wajib, this thing is haram, this thing is makruh, so on and so forth. They say that in order for us to help us understand the nature of Allah, meaning L-A-W, Allah, they say we can break Allah into 3 categories. Okay, the first one is the presence of, and I want to speak technically here because I believe that, alhamdulillah, we have people who are very capable of furthering and elevating their levels of Islamic knowledge. It's good for us to understand some of these things. In Allah, when Allah decrees a law, He does so not randomly. There's always something called maslaha or mafsada. The laws of Islam are based on the presence of there being some goodness or some evil. When Allah says that something is haram, for example, there is some evil which He wants us to stay away from. Okay, that's called the maslaha or the mafsada. Now, other than that, there's something which is called the irada of Allah, which is the desire of Allah. How important is this matter with Allah? Is it something where He wants to prohibit us from doing it? It's something so dangerous to us that He says that this is haram? Or is it something where it's harmful but it's not so dangerous, makruh? Or is it something which, okay, it's good for us but not necessary, mustahab? Or if it's something which is absolutely necessary, wajib? This is the extent of the desire of Allah attached to that law. And then beyond that, we have what's called the i'tibar, meaning that the actual legislation of this law. When that law actually reaches the level where it's now going to be issued forth, proclaimed, when people are going to find out about it. Okay, now, why did I say this? Because oftentimes, sometimes we don't give these laws their right due. And we just think, okay, there's just a bunch of rules and regulations. Sometimes we say, okay, why so much, this type of thing. But if we understand it from this perspective, we start to see something shining through, which is the following: that behind every single one of these laws, if you peel away the surface level, we see something which is called the irada of Allah, the desire of Allah. Allah is talking to us through these laws. He's conveying to us what is it that He likes and how much does He like it. What does He dislike and how much does He dislike it? And as an abd of Allah, this is something which is very important, that I have discovered that my Lord wants something from me, and to what extent as well too. Do you see how when we have a tawheedi perspective on things, our approach to these matters can change? From this perspective, then we start to understand why it's so important for an abd to have contentment with the laws of Allah. Imam Khomeini rahmatullahi alayhi says in that same chapter, he says that if somebody even if they follow the law, but they dislike doing so, he says it's not clear what they will answer in the grave when they are questioned with the question of Man Rabbuk, who is your Lord? In the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt al-Islam, we're told that some people, when they're asked that question, and all of us will be asked that question, may Allah save us from being questioned severely at that time. There will be some people who are questioned, Man Rabbuk, they will be able to answer easily. Their tongues will speak fluently and they'll fly through that stage. But there will be other people who, very interesting, the hadith describes it in detail, that when they're asked that question, they suddenly will lose the power to speak eloquently. They will stumble with their tongues and they will begin to say that people say that, and then the angels will say that you don't know. Let's go on to the next question. Man nabiyuk. And then same thing. He'll stumble and then he'll say, well, people say, no, you don't know. Next question. Right? This is a reality. Imam Khomeini says that if we don't have that rida, then this could be the thing. It's not clear how we're going to answer at that point. So this is one of the stages of rida. Inshallah, I want to explain the next stage. If you can help me with the salawat ala Muhammad wa The next stage that he describes of the radi or the radiya, one who is content with Allah as the Rabb, is being content with Allah being the Rabb in the takween. Meaning that when it comes to His being the Rabb, the one who is sahibul amr, the one who is sahibul ikhtiyar, the one who is in charge of the affairs of this universe, that abd should be content with that. We have to realize that this world is not a random collection of different things. This world is the creation of Allah. And not for a moment after creating it is Allah left this world on its own, because the true creation can never be separated from the true creator. Everything that happens in this universe is according to the decree of Allah. And part of having that contentment is accepting the decree of Allah in His universe. Being happy with one's situation. being content with it. Again, I'll give you a simple example. So many times we hear people criticizing the weather. They say that, oh, it's such a bad day today. The weather was bad. Now it's good. What does that indicate? What is behind that, if we ask ourselves? Don't you think that there's some sort of arrogance in being one who makes a call on what is the work of Allah? They say that Luqman al-Hakim, Luqman, the one who, according to some, they say he was a prophet, the one who is praised in the Quran, they say that he was somebody who wasn't the most attractive of people. One day there was a man who comes to him and starts to make fun of him for his looks. Right? Started basically calling him an ugly person. So he says, I have a question for you. Are you criticizing the artwork or are you criticizing the artist? Who am I? I am the creation of Allah. What right do I have to take an issue with the Creator? What right do I have to take an issue with the Rabb? What right do I have to demand that things go my way in this world? As an abd, I don't have any right to demand that. In fact, it's the opposite. Allah has the right to demand things of me because He's the one who created me and gave me and sustains me. I don't have a right to demand things from Him. That's why we find that this family, the family of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they showed us a superior way of living a life of contentment. Let me just quote a couple of ahadith from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam regarding the concept of rida. This one is from Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. He says, "Man ittakala ala husn al-ikhtiyar min Allah, lam yatamanna annahu fi ghayr al-hal allati ikhtaraha Allah lah." Whoever has trust and relies on Allah in his current situation, right? He knows that Allah is taking care of things. Allah's got his back. Allah is taking care of the situation. He would never wish to be in any situation other than what Allah has chosen for him to be in. Now imagine if somebody had this type of understanding in their life, how easy life would be to go through, no matter what the obstacles are. Another hadith, this is from our sixth Imam. He says regarding his grandfather, Rasulullah, he says that my grandfather never used to say the words, if only, when it came to the past. If only it was this way, if only it was that way. You find some people who are experts at this, right? You sit down with them, it's like, okay, they open up the door, the book of complaints. If only this, if only that, if only this, if only that. But they teach us a different way of living. Now this doesn't mean that somebody should be complacent. They just accept whatever comes their way and they say, okay, Allah, I'm happy with it and I'm not going to do anything about it. No, Allah makes His decree. But He also gives us that free will to be able to do things to change our situation to a certain extent. So for example, let's say that I'm in a situation where financially things aren't going so well. Okay, on one hand, I can be content with the decree of Allah. On the other hand, I can be striving to be able to change things. Let's say that something happens which is unpleasant. I'm not going to complain against Allah, but there's nothing wrong with my expressing my needs and my desires to Allah in dua and saying that, Allah, You are my Rabb. You have made things in this, You are in charge of things. I turn to You now. You help me out of this situation. This is what I'd like. So the rida is not something which is contrary to dua, not something which is contrary to efforts. And we see in the life of Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra that she was somebody who always strove. She wasn't somebody who just took the situation and then backed away. When her rights are taken away from her, what does she do? Does she remain silent? No, she goes and pursues them. She speaks for the truth. We see in her life that she was somebody truly who was radiyah, somebody who was content, somebody who had allowed Allah to enter into her life in a full sense. This dua, this statement that she makes where she says that Raditu billahi rabba wa bi anta, with you my father as the Nabi and with Ali as the Imam. This is a statement, I was doing a bit of research, I found that a similar statement was spoken by at least 5 of the Ma'asumeen alayhi salam in our books of hadith, meaning from Rasulullah, from Imam Ali alayhi salam, from Sayyida Fatima, from Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam, in various places. This is something that we are supposed to say. In fact, there's a very beautiful dua you can find in the books of dua to be recited after the salah. And ulama emphasize this. They say that don't stay away from this dua. At least once in a while, read this dua and test yourself to see where is your heart with respect to Allah. Raditu billahi rabba wa bil islami dina wa bi Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa alihi nabiyya wa bi aliyin imama wa bil Hasani wal Husayn wa aliyin, and all the way Muhammad and wa Ja'far, and all the way until the Imam of our time. A'immatan wa qadatan wa sada bihim atawalla wa min a'dahim atabarra. This is something which is so necessary, especially at our times, for us to remind ourselves. We need that reminder. Who truly are our leaders? Who is it that we're looking to be happy with? Who are our friends and who are our enemies? وَمِنْ أَعْدَائِهِمْ أَتَبَرَّ. I stay away from their enemies and those who have the lifestyle of their enemies. I'm not happy with that. I'm happy with them. As I said, Sayyida Fatima was the best example of this. Before I move into the masab, let me just narrate one incident which shows the extent of her rida with Allah. Somebody who even in the most dire circumstances never leaves aside the remembrance of Allah. According to a hadith, we're told that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went for the hijrah. He goes for the hijrah and he leaves behind his successor, Imam Ali alayhi salam, to take care of the affairs, to sleep in the bed at the night, and then to join him afterwards. Rasulullah knows that Imam Ali is going to be joining him, so he pauses, he halts his journey in Quba, waiting for Imam alayhi salam to join him. Now, Imam alayhi salam needs 3 days in Makkah to wrap up the affairs, and then he undertakes the journey. Not only does he have to take care of the Prophet's belongings, but he also is entrusted with the care of 3 ladies. They are known as the Fawatim. This is a historical thing. Who are the 3? One of them is Fatima bint Asad, his own mother. The other one is Fatima bint Zubair, a family member. And the third one is Fatima az-Zahra alayhi salam, the daughter of Rasulullah. It is these 3 that he has to take custody over and take care of them in this journey. Now, this is not an ordinary journey. Because when they leave Makkah, the enemy does not want them to meet Rasulullah. They know what it means if Imam Ali alayhi salam is going to join Rasulullah. So Abu Sufyan pursues him. He sends one of his top slaves after him, pursuing him, and along the way, he meets up with them. There's a skirmish that takes place, and Imam Ali salam, of course, defeats him in that skirmish, and they proceed, but they are in a state of fear, a state of trepidation, not knowing what's going to happen upcoming in the future. According to hadith, that night, when the camp, their caravan sets down, instead of just going to sleep, all of them began to worship Allah. And when this takes place, in this situation, imagine now having left your home, being exiled, being persecuted, being chased in the dark of the night, not knowing where you are, not knowing where you're going to go to. In that situation, to be able to remember Allah and to turn to Him, this is something that cannot be ignored. At this time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam receives a revelation. He is in Quba waiting for Imam Ali alayhi salam. He receives a wahi of the Quran. When Imam Ali alayhi salam joins him there, he tells him, before he can himself relate what happened, he can tell him what happened. He tells him, I know that this happened to you, and on account of what you just did, Allah has revealed these verses in favor of you and the Fawatim and Sayyida Fatima az-Zahra alayhi salam. What are these verses? A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ اللَّهِ رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. These are the ulil albab. These are the people of the intellect. What do? They remember Allah. Where? When they're standing, when they're sitting, when on their sides. And they ponder upon the creation of Allah and they say, Rabbana, O our Lord, ma khalaqta hadha batila, you have not created this in vain. Subhanaka faqina adhab an-nar. It is for them that these verses were revealed. For the likes of Sayyida Fatima alayha salam, who always remembered Allah and had that contentment in her. Now as we move to the Masa'ib for tonight, I want to first of all mention, let me send my salam to Sayyida Fatima and then inshallah mention some of the events that took place around these nights many, many years ago. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا أمير المؤمنين صلى الله عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. Shaykh At-Tusi reports from his teacher Shaykh Saduq, who narrates from his chain of narrators, that at the end of the life of Rasulullah, he at one point begins to cry very severely, till the tears, his blessed tears, began to fill his beard. His companions ask him, Ya Rasulullah, what is it that makes you cry so much? He tells them that I am crying over what I know will happen on account of the most evil of the creation of Allah. It's as if I can see what they are going to do to my daughter Fatima alayha salam, and she will be crying out, Ya Abata, Ya Abata, oh my father, oh my father. But there will be no one there to help her. There will be no one there to respond to her. Sayyida Fatima alayha salam happens to overhear her father say these words. She begins to cry. When Rasulullah hears his daughter crying, he says to her, Oh my daughter, what is it that makes you cry like this? She tells him that, Oh my father, don't think that it's on account of what you have told me will happen to me. That's not what's worrying me. What is saddening me is my separation with you, O my father, that you will be leaving this world and I will be left behind. Her father at that point gives her the glad tidings that, Oh Fatima, it is only a matter of a short time when you too will be joining me and you too will be leaving this world. Salama, the wife of Rasulullah, goes to see Sayyida Fatima when she is very ill, towards the last days of her life. She says to her, Oh Fatima, kayfa asbahti? How is it that you find yourself? What is your condition? What is your situation? Fatima alayhi salam is not one to complain about the pain. She's not one to complain about the injury. What does she say? She says that there are two things, O Salama, that are bothering me. There are two things that are making me cry as such. What are these two things? Number one, faqdun nabi. It is the loss of the Nabi. It is the loss of the Prophet. And number two is dhulmul wasi. It is the injustice that they have done to the wasi, to the successor. These are the things that are occupying me. But the same Fatima alayha salam, she seized every opportunity she could to let the people know about the dhulm that was done to her. The tears and the crying that we read about in the books of history was a way of her protesting what they did to the wasi. Fatima alayhi salam is reported to have said, Subbat alayya masaibu, law subbat ala al-ayyami lasirna layaliya. The extent of the masaib that have been inflicted upon me are such that if they were poured down on the daytimes, they would turn into nighttime. Now as we remember the events leading up to her passing away. We have to imagine the situation. Normally when a mother passes away from this world, her children are grown, they are elderly, they have adults themselves. But when a mother passes away and her children are very young, this is something which is a tragic scene for us to think about and for us to bear. Especially when the mother is Fatima and the children are Hassan and Hussein and Zainab and Kulthum. In such a situation, this is not a normal scene that we are seeing. Imagine these children who are surrounding their mother, wondering why is it that she lacks that life that she used to have? Why is it that she is crying so much? Why is it that she seems so weak and in so much pain? In one of these nights, one of these days, Asma, who was staying with her and helping Sayyida Fatima, she says that day, my master, the Sayyida Fatima, she seemed a little bit with more energy. She wore a new clothing. And she addressed me. And I was excited thinking that now she is getting better. But then when I heard what she had to tell me, I realized that I was wrong. She tells me that, "Oh Asma, it seems that my time has come. If you find that I no longer am talking to you, then you come and try to talk to me. And if you find that I do not respond to you, then I commission you to go inform my husband Imam Ali alayhi salam about what has taken place to me." According to one report, when Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam enter the home, they see Asma standing there. Now, normally when children go into a home, they would expect to be greeted by their mother. But when they know that they see somebody else there, that there's something wrong, and they detect that something is wrong, Imam Hassan asks, "Has something happened to my mother?" He goes to her side and he sees that she's sleeping. Now why is it that she's sleeping in the daytime at this time? Maybe he thinks that she's just taking a nap or something. He goes to her and he tries to wake her. He tries to move her blessed body, but he sees that she does not respond. He cries out, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." "Oh Hussein, oh my brother, my mother has now left us. Wa Muhammada, oh Muhammad." Who else do they have to turn to? "Wa Ahmada." They turn to their grandfather. "This is what has happened to our mother. Now we have to go inform our father, Imam Ali alayhi salam." Imam Ali is in the masjid. Imam Ali alayhi salam is engaged in ibadah. When they come rushing to him, they tell him that something has happened to our mother. Imam Ali alayhi salam, who had such a special connection with Fatima. Imam Ali alayhi salam, who said that she was the best of helpers ala ta'atillah, in obeying Allah. Imam Ali alayhi salam, who says that I never found even once that she displeased me, or that she angered me, or that she disobeyed me. Imam Ali alayhi salam, the champion of Khaybar, the champion of Badr, when he hears this news, he faints to the ground. This is too much for him to bear. They bring some water to be able to revive him. He weakly stands up and he cries out, "Oh Fatima, who is it that I can turn to for solace after you? Who is فَبِمَنِ الْعَزَى يَا بِنْتَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ? Who is it that's going to be my source of consolation after you?" أَلَا لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ.